The 5 who were locked outside weren't the careless ones. They weren't the distracted ones, not the worldly, not the spiritually apathetic, not the ones who forgot the bridegroom was coming. They were the watchers, the ones who showed up to the right place at the right time carrying their lamps, and the door still shut in their faces. You've tracked the signs. You know the alignment of the nations in Daniel's final week. You follow the channels, you've read the books, you watch the geopolitical convergences every week. And there's a quiet confidence that comes with all of that, a sense that you are among the awake, the vigilant, the ones who won't be caught off guard when the cry sounds. But Matthew 25 doesn't describe the foolish virgins as careless people. It describes them as watchers, as people who were actively expecting the bridegroom, who had their lamps in hand, who were present at the right place for the right reason. By every external measure, they were prepared. And still the door shut. Here is the part of this parable the prophecy community almost never addresses directly. There is a specific mechanism buried inside this text and confirmed by cognitive science, by which prophetic knowledge builds a false sense of spiritual readiness. Not in the careless, not in the distracted, in the informed, in the ones who feel the most prepared. And if that mechanism is working in your life right now, you would not know it, because the foolish virgins didn't know it either. That is the most terrifying line in the whole passage, not that they were left out, but that they were shocked when it happened. In the late 1990s, researchers studying how humans assess their own competence discovered something unsettling. The moment someone begins accumulating knowledge in a field, their sense of mastery spikes. It rises faster than their actual ability. They feel like they understand more than they do, and they stay in that inflated state until they go deep enough to discover how much they still don't know. Applied to end-time signs and spiritual readiness, this pattern is devastating. The more you know about the prophetic timelines, the convergences, the geopolitical alignments, the more spiritually prepared you feel. Even if the interior work that actually produces readiness hasn't been touched in years. Even if the oil level hasn't changed since you first started tracking signs. The lamp can be full of knowledge. The vessel underneath it can be running on empty. And from the outside, from your own perspective, the lamp looks the same either way. In Matthew 25, all 10 virgins are virgins, which means all 10 had kept themselves set apart. All 10 had their lamps, which means all 10 had the visible markers of preparation. And then the text says something that most teachings pass right over. All 10 fell asleep during the delay. The parable does not divide the 10 into those who stayed awake and those who slept. All of them slept. The division appears only at the midnight cry, when the moment comes that demands the lamps sustain real light through the darkest hour of the wait. And 5 of them discover, at that exact moment, that what looked like preparation wasn't. They had the lamp, they just didn't have what the lamp runs on. Now here is the weight of that in this specific moment in history. We are living in the most prophecy-saturated era in church history. More content, more channels, more sign tracking, more analysis than any previous generation of believers has had access to. The information pipeline is constant. You can spend an hour every day consuming prophetic content, feel like you are doing serious spiritual work, and still walk away from all of it with nothing that fills the vessel. Because information isn't oil. The oil in this parable carries a specific gravity that ancient readers would have understood immediately. Oil was not accumulated quickly. It was pressed slowly, under tremendous weight, in private, without ceremony. You couldn't manufacture it on demand. You couldn't buy it at midnight when the moment required it. The 5 foolish virgins tried to borrow what could only be built, and discovered in that moment that the one thing that sustains light through the darkest part of the wait simply cannot be transferred. This is the trap that nobody in the end times community is talking about. You can spend years tracking the signs of Jesus' return and never once press the thing that actually fills the vessel. And the frightening part, the part that makes this parable genuinely dangerous to read, is that you can feel entirely ready the entire time. Here is what most teachings on this parable miss completely. The foolish virgins did not feel unprepared when they fell asleep. They fell asleep the same way the wise ones did, present, expectant, with their lamps. The failure was invisible to them. Invisible failure is a different category of danger than visible failure. When you're visibly failing, when you know your prayer life has collapsed, when you can feel the drift, the crisis is legible. You know where you stand. You can respond to it. But when you feel spiritually alert, when you have the vocabulary of readiness, when you can identify every sign of the times, invisible failure has perfect cover. The lamp gives it cover. Your knowledge of Matthew 24, of Revelation, of Daniel's 70th week, all of it becomes the lamp that makes the empty vessel invisible, even to you. Something happens inside prophetic communities that almost no one names. The feed begins to substitute for the quiet. Watching a video about the signs of Christ's return starts to feel like actually preparing for Christ's return. Staying informed about prophetic developments gives the sensation of spiritual activity, without requiring the kind of interior work that actually fills the vessel. This is not an accident of human nature. It is a mechanism. It is subtle enough to run for years without being detected. And it leaves no external evidence until the midnight cry, until the exact moment when the lamp needs to sustain itself through darkness, and the oil that was supposed to be there simply isn't. The foolish virgins did not fall asleep out of laziness. They fell asleep alongside the wise ones, present and expecting. The only thing that separated them was the one thing that couldn't be downloaded, borrowed, or built in the final moment before the door opened. When the cry sounds at midnight, and it always sounds at midnight, always at the darkest hour of the longest delay, you cannot go back. You cannot pause the moment to build what should have been built in the quiet years before. The door opens once, and from inside, no one can transfer to you what only the hidden place produces. The bridegroom in this parable is not impressed by the lamp. He is not evaluating your prophetic library. He is not sorting the 10 by who knew the most signs, who tracked the most convergences, or who had the most complete understanding of Revelation's timeline. He is responding to what is inside the vessel. One of the most revered figures in Christian contemplative history made a striking observation about this exact passage. He said the foolish virgins were not lacking good deeds. They practiced the virtues. They had the outward marks of genuine faith. What they were lacking, he wrote, was the actual interior presence of the Holy Spirit, the one thing that produces light that doesn't go out when the weight extends into the darkest hour. They had done the visible things. They were at the right place. They had the external markers of readiness. They had tracked the signs, but they had not acquired the one thing the lamp actually runs on, and they didn't know it until the moment required it. Here is the truth Matthew 25 will not let you escape. There is a kind of spiritual confidence that comes from information. It carries the texture of preparedness. It feels like readiness, but it is not the same as oil, and you cannot tell the difference between them in the ordinary light of ordinary days. You can only tell the difference at midnight, when the lamp needs to sustain real light through real darkness, and the vessel either has something in it or it doesn't. What does it mean to build oil? It means the thing that cannot be performed for an audience, prayer that isn't content, silence that isn't a strategy, the long, private, costly discipline of actually waiting on God, not consuming content about waiting on God, choosing the interior over the informational, not because information is wrong, but because information can quietly become the substitute you offer in place of the interior work. And the bridegroom can tell the difference, even when you can't. The oil is not made in the feed. It is not made in the comment section. It is not made by watching another video about end-time signs. It is made in the quiet, unperformable, hidden place where the soul actually forms, where no one sees, where nothing is measured, where the pressing is slow and private and real. You can know every sign. You can identify every prophetic alignment. You can explain Daniel's 70th week and understand the seals and the trumpets and the sequence of the last days. You can be among the most informed believers alive about the events surrounding the second coming of Christ, and still arrive at the midnight cry with a lamp that cannot sustain itself. Matthew 25 has always been asking one question, not whether you can identify the signs, but whether, when the cry sounds, when the moment comes that requires what only the hidden place produces, you are carrying what sustains light through the delay. That question cannot be answered by watching more. It can only be answered in the place where the oil gets made.